All right, 16 past the 7 o'clock hour Eastern Time, right here on a Wednesday edition of WJAB Boxing Podcast, powered by the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, and inside the Tri-X 57 studios, and of course, streaming online, TriX57.com. Rich Quinones, Rob Scott. We'll hope to catch up with Mark Breland in about 10 or so minutes. As I alluded to, kind of the teaser going into the break. This weekend, I mean, you've got basically what I think is not even a make or break. I mean, I think a lot of people have been clamoring for this. You've got arguably, you got the two best welterweights. We're going to see it. We're going to see the clash right now. Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman for the WBC World Welterweight title, WBA Super Welterweight title as well. And the card itself is stacked. Lou DiBella, again, wonderful job. It'll be a CBS affair Saturday. And look, I mean, you know, there's so many schools of thought regarding this fight. Everyone wants to see if Keith Thurman can really put that signature career-defining notch on his belt. You know, then the other spectrum is, okay, Danny Garcia, he's kind of the half villain. I think a lot of people want to see him lose because they want his father to just shut up already. I mean, that's from those that I've spoken to and the boxing fans, that's kind of the sentiment. They want to see Thurman, who's a talented boxer, take that next step. You know, we already saw what Garcia was able to do at 140. He cleaned out that division. Different animal right now. And I think, to me, this is a toss-up. I think this fight is a toss-up right now.
Well, I think this fight falls in that category of how we were just saying about Deontay Wilder, and that is, you know, no matter who's winning this fight's not going to be over until it's over, until you hear that bell ring. And it's funny because when you talk about a Garcia, you know, you think of that old saying where they say, you know, a trainer can talk, but they can't get in there and fight for you. But thus far, if there was any team that's been able to do just that, it's been Garcia and his father, because his father's been the mouthpiece, it's been the animal outside the ring, and Garcia, Danny's been the animal within the ring. And it's worked for them thus far, but like you said, he's moving, he's cleaned out the 140-pound division, but now at 147, there's been a lot of people that's not only going to be a tougher thing for him, tougher eggs for him to crack, but also these guys have been here for a minute. And Thurman has been clamoring at this opportunity to fight Garcia or any of the other champions for quite some time. Now, whether who is going to be the better man when the smoke settles, like I said, both of them have a puncher's chance. But I just think like with the Garcia has been a fighter who's, you know, he's looked susceptible, you know, with certain people, but at the same time, you know, when he's gotten there with somebody with a heartbeat, he's proven his mettle.
Listen, you cannot take away any of the wins that he's had. You can't. I mean, because he's had some tough wins, but let's be fair, he's also had some fights where the consensus opinion was he lost. You know, you go back to the Peterson fight. If Peterson actually decides to box a whole night, maybe that's a different fight. You know, you go back to the Herrera fight where he gets the benefit of the doubt, the fight being in Puerto Rico. And then conversely, you look at a guy in Thurman, and Thurman, to me, kind of showed his chops when he fought Sean Porter because he had to do everything. He had a fight, he had a box, he had a brawl. He was going against a guy who wasn't backing down, who was coming forward. Danny's not that type of fighter. I think Keith has more power, but I think overall Garcia is probably they both have good power. Let me say that. I should take that back. You know, Garcia is a good counterpuncher. Is he going to try to bait Keith in a little bit to make him unforced errors, unforced mistakes, you know, to be too aggressive, if you will? I don't know, because you don't find him he does not get himself in that much trouble. He doesn't.
Well, you can't beat up a fighter for a bad performance because, like I said, bad performances have happened since the start of boxing. So Danny has had a bad performance. He had a bad performance versus Peterson, but, you know, was it a thing of, you know, Peterson the aura of Peterson wasn't all that going into the fight because of his loss. He got knocked out by Matisse and so on and so forth. So you never know if Danny had a big head going into that fight. But regardless, he should have been, that still would be just be an excuse because he should have been ready for him. But at the same time, we know what fighters do, get that big head and think that I can just run through this guy. And of course, Peterson had a different thing that night. But was it a night of him having, you know, a bad night? Or is this just the start of something where you see that he's not what he used to be, or he's basically declining at this point? And I don't see that just yet. I think that this is the one fight that's going to pick him up and going to make him rise to the occasion.
Look at his power welterweight, though. I mean, the power, it's a different story at 147. He's 3-0 as a welterweight, but he's only had 2 knockouts. I think there's warranted for criticism. You look at the level of opposition, fighting guys like Guerrero, fighting guys like Paulie Malignaggi, Sammy Vargas. I mean, even years ago when everyone said, what do you fight a guy like Rod Salka, who's a gatekeeper, who's a club fighter? I mean, the fight against Guerrero was a gritty 12-rounder. To me, it's a different animal with a guy in Keith Thurman. And I think Keith Thurman, again, you can see right now, technically Danny Garcia goes in as the B-side. So again, if you take it from a Vegas line, he goes in as the underdog. I still think it's a pick-em. I go back to the fight against Amir Khan. Amir Khan, you can't fight. You have to try to box. Mm-hmm. And Amir Khan's a good counterpuncher. He moves around well. At times, people question his chin, but you got to work the body a little bit. Thurman, everyone believes that Thurman is going to be susceptible to body shots. So again, it's that question of, is Danny and Angel, is the game plan devised where pressure, fight in a pocket, fight in a phone booth, because you also get a risk. You take the shot, the risk of getting caught.
Well, also with these guys respecting each other's power so much, who knows how much that's going to take them out of their game plan, because with other fighters, you're willing to take certain chances, you're willing to throw certain punches, where with guys where you know what's coming back at you, you tend to not throw that punch that has gotten you there. That's what I'm saying. So both guys respect each other.
Who's the better fighter? Who's the better boxer? Would you say Thurman's the better boxer? Danny maybe has a little more power.
No, I think Danny's. I think Danny's a very good boxer. I think that he's. But when you're knocking guys out, you tend to be known for your knockout ability, as opposed to it kind of overshadows your boxing ability. I mean, let's face it. Neither one of them are Floyd Mayweather. Neither one of them are Sugar Ray Leonard, in the sense of boxing, but at the same time, I think both of them have more in their repertoire than just punching power.
No, and I don't think we're going to get a Hearns Sugar Ray Leonard circa 1981. I don't think we're going to get a De La Hoya Trinidad circa 1999. But to me, I'm enamored with this fight. I'm enamored with this card because this is the fight where, like I said, the rubber meets the road. I think a lot of people want to see Garcia lose. They think he's been spoon-fed a lot of his opponents. They think he's been cherry-picking. And I think they're to some extent accurate. The criticism is warranted in that regard. Thurman now all of a sudden, which is ironic because if you listen to Errol Spence talk about the fight, no one wants to touch Errol Spence. The irony is, when I used to bring up Errol Spence to Keith Thurman would just say, hey, he's a young buck. He's got to kind of grow and get some wins under. Well, now look what's happening, right? I don't think anyone wants to touch him going forward, but that's a story for another day. I think Thurman...
Well, a lot of that, when fighters say that, a lot of that, he put it in the category of he's a young buck, so he has to make his way up. He put that in the category of as if, like, from a skill standpoint. But he wasn't talking about a skill standpoint, because I know that he respects Spence's skill level. Deep down, what he was talking about was he's a young buck and nobody knows him, and basically he's not bringing money to the table. That's basically what fighters, when fighters say things like that, that's what it means, that he's not bringing money to the table. So let's just wait. I'd rather fight this guy over here who's going to give me some money. Where what is it? The risk has to outweigh
the reward.
The reward, you know. So.
Which the irony too is when you talk about the numbers, and I know we got to hit a break, but real quick, I pulled this up. Let me just pull it up. I put it up on Facebook. As far as the ratings for, and it'll lead into this. Washington versus Wilder on Fox from Saturday peaked at 2.57 million according to Nielsen. You got to take the full PBC card on Fox in account because you had the Hurd stoppage over Harrison. You had the Dominic Brazili fight as well, which averaged about 1.862. That card ranks as one of the best since August 2016, which was an NBC card. Why do I bring that up? Because that was Spence and Bundu as well. And the reason that did really well, Errol Spence, but you had a great lead-in because you had the Olympics. You had the gold medal for basketball. So, ratings aside, I think Spence is certainly, I would pay money to watch the kid fight. I think he's going to be, I think he already is an exceptional fighter.
Well, after, like I said, he said what he said, but like I said, make no mistake about it, that was from a rating standpoint. But at this point right now, after Spence's fight with Kell Brooks, if he does what he expects to do,
sure, which he says he's going to do is stop him.
Well, if he does that, then it's going to create an atmosphere where fighters like a Thurman and so on and so forth cannot run from this man anymore.
He's going to, and that's, and you know what, you're right, and this is another reason. And we'll talk about this to close it out, our final segment. But another reason, this is, PBC. This is kind of the reason they bought all that airtime, with the Thurman and the Garcias, to put on the fights that the fans want to see.
Oh yeah, give it to them. If you give quality fights, fans will come.
Yep, absolutely. All right, midway through a Wednesday edition of WJAB Boxing Podcast, powered by the Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame, alongside Rob Scott. I'm Rich Quinones. Don't forget to keep us locked in on TriX57.com. You can also follow and like us on Facebook, Atlantic City Boxing Hall of Fame. We'll give you a little more information on the other side. We're hoping to track down Mark Breland. We'll break down Wilder, Washington, and get Mark's thoughts on Deontay going forward.